I do really, really like this. Feels weird though not having a hammer there. Every time, you know, I cock it and I go to check it, when I close that lever, I wanna ride that hammer home, and there is no hammer to ride home there. There's just a thumb safety. Let's take a look at this new Henry right here. Now I do like me a good Henry. These are all Henry rifles up here. These are not all of my Henry rifles though. They don't all fit. This is the new Supreme from Henry. This comes currently available in 2 calibers, 223 and 5.56, or 300 blackout. This is the 223 5.56. Now I say it that way, typically it's one or the other, right? But they specify that it is 223/5.56. Obviously it will shoot either caliber. A couple of things that are very unique to this, and one of them is it uses a lever gun that uses AR magazines. Now, I heard several people saying different things, right? Why do you need a lever gun that takes AR magazines? Well, if they made a lever gun that took magazines that in an AR caliber that didn't take AR magazines, there would be a bunch of people that would complain about that. Look at the Ruger American, the first gen, that does not take AR magazines, and everybody complained about, why did you make its own magazine? Why didn't you just have it use AR magazines? So if it didn't use AR magazines, I feel like there would be more people complaining than the fact that it does. The sights on here are very unique. Now when your front sight typically, sorry, your rear sight, right, is typically kind of like a notched out square. Well, this one is canted like this. It's narrower on top, widens out on the bottom, and actually matches the contour of the front sight tip that comes up. It's kind of unique and takes a little bit of getting used to. The wood on this is absolutely beautiful. I'm going to give you a closer look at it here in a little bit. I did fix up what we did at the range here a little bit, best I could. Hopefully that doesn't show up as bad as it did before. It does have a threaded barrel. I like that it has a threaded barrel, and it also has a little rubber washer on there, and I like that because it helps hold on your thread protector or your suppressor when you have that rubber on there. And so a lot of newer guns are coming with that, and I really like that. You don't have to get it so tight that you can't get it off. You just get it nice and snug, and it'll actually hold there. And the smoothness of this absolutely appalls me. It is amazing. Watch this with just my pinky. That is so smooth. That's crazy. And when you're shooting it, it's a little bit harder when you're shooting it because you're actually chambering around or extracting around, so there's a little bit more pressure than there is when it's just empty. But that is so smooth. It is very weird to me that it does not have an external hammer. Whenever I check my lever gun, right, I close it, and I'm so used to having my thumb right there to ride that hammer home, and there is not a hammer there. That's really weird to me. Thumb safety. If you're going to have a safety on a lever gun, I like a thumb safety versus a crossbolt safety. That's just a personal preference of mine, right? Now it comes with a 10-round magazine, comes with a PMag magazine, and if you saw, or if you didn't yet, depending on where I put this in the video, this is the magazine that we used at the range, and it was a little hard getting out. It seemed to fit in there fine, but when the gun heated up, it was a little bit harder to get it out. This magazine well is a lot more precise than what a typical AR magazine well is. So it's very, very snug. I like the way that these PMags fit better. They are still nice and like they're firm. They fit in there very snug compared to typically you get a lot of loose. I shouldn't say a lot, but you get a lot more looseness in your traditional AR style than you do this. This magazine well is very snug, and this didn't take a whole lot to heat it up, I felt like, and it was just harder to get out. So I am going to continue to use PMags. These do actually work though. They just aren't quite as smooth as the plastic ones. Now, again, it comes with a 10-round, does fit the 30-round just fine. We did not have any issues with that cycling, although it did feel a little bit weird when you're up there. you have your finger out of the trigger, or at least I do, and then, you know, it goes up against that magazine. Typically, there's nothing there, but not a big deal. Didn't take much to get used to that. It is drilled and tapped. If you want to put an optic on there, you can put a rail, or depending on, you know, what you want to do for an optic. It is drilled and tapped for that already. This magazine release is on both sides. So if you want to put in your magazine and use your finger here to drop it out, you can do so. Or if you are on the other side and use your thumb to pop it out, or if you are right or left-handed, right? If you're left-handed and you want to pop it out with your left hand, then it works for either side. It's actually pretty nice, a pretty nice magazine release there for that. I would have anticipated them using a push button similar to the AR, but I actually kind of like this. I think I might like this better. Again, I mentioned the wood on here is really, really nice. The sights were a little bit different because it took some getting used to, just because it's not the same sight picture as you see. As you're watching that, okay, so you're just on one side, right? Here's your front sight post, and here's your rear sight, and that front sight is canted, and that rear sight is canted, and there's equal space all along there, as opposed to canted and straight up, and it, you know, you bring it up to the point. It just looked different. It's a different sight picture. We did try it with the suppressor. Again, it got very, very hot with the suppressor, but it got pretty doggone freaking warm without the suppressor too. This is a thin barrel, and it is not free-floated, so it did heat up more than what I was anticipating it to. But it didn't cause any issues, with the exception of this magazine was a little bit harder to get out. We got a suppressor on there, and the sights, as you can see, those sights do clear the top of that. I like that. Henry has had some guns, including their X models. The 360 Buckhammer does have higher sights that clear it. The 4570, 44 Magnum I don't have here right now. 357 and 45 all have a little bit lower sight, and when you put a suppressor on there, this is a 45 caliber, when you put a 45, or actually have a 46 caliber suppressor, that's big enough on there that it pretty much comes out with the top of your front sight, and you really can't see it very well. And I'm not real happy with that. The 360 Buckhammer, they did actually make that front sight a little bit higher. On the Supreme, they also made that front sight higher, and as you can see, that does clear. The suppressor gives you a nice sight picture we have no problem seeing. This sure is smooth. Now, it comes with a 10-round magazine, so that's what we're going to try first. It's actually the first round we'll be putting through this. Well, we dropped that last one a little low, but we're going to try this magazine now. We are shooting just a tad bit high, but we're at indoor range, so we're a little closer. But we've got a really nice screw. We're going to go ahead and we'll throw this old GI magazine in here. didn't have a full 30 rounds in that magazine. I think that was only like 25 in there, but that's like 25 rounds right there. It is still insanely hot from the suppressor. I think it's from the suppressor. So we pulled it off. We're going to try a few rounds without it. Throw that 10 round magazine back in there. Let's move our shots up a little bit. A little bit more recoil when you take the suppressor off, but it's a 223, so there's really not much. We are shooting 55 grain Winchester 5.56. Load up a couple more in there. Surprisingly more muzzle flash than what I was expecting. That's probably why our suppressor heated up so fast. Well, I was shooting a little bit of semi-auto 9mm, waiting for this to cool down a little bit. It's pretty nice and cool now. And I didn't really realize it until I was getting done. All of the brass that's reflecting off of this wall is scratching the crap out of my stock, which I'm pretty disappointed about. I wish I'd have seen that sooner. It's had such nice wood and such a nice finish on it. I'm pretty disappointed about that. But that's 8 shots right there.
That's pretty clean, dude.
I feel like it's smoothing out a little bit more too. It was pretty smooth to begin with.
Yeah.
But I've got maybe 50 rounds through it now. And I think it's smoothing out even a little bit more. Got really, really hot with the suppressor on.
I bet.
Like even after I took it off, like I'm melting my microfiber towel trying to take it off. But there you go, give it a shot.
All right, sweet, dude. Well, that's crazy smooth, dude.
Yeah, thumb safety up his fire.
Dude, that thing is smooth though.
Isn't it?
Yeah. It's kind of trippy. Because you're used to having a hammer for a lever action.
Right.
Right? So I'm like, even here right now, I'm like, oh, there's nothing here.
Yeah, it is weird. It's definitely weird.
Slick, though, but suppressed. Yeah, I mean.
This is 16 shots, 2 different shooters. You can see we dropped one low and to the left, but all the other ones are pretty much right in there. Now with the suppressor and the heat, this mag did like, I don't know if it swelled up a little bit or if the gun shrunk a little bit from the heat. The gun actually should have expanded. I think the magazine expanded a little bit and was a little bit hard to remove. Let's try the plastic one. We're going to use it not suppressed, but we're going to try a few more rounds out of it. No problem with that magazine, drops right out. The paper's moving a little bit, so every once in a while I gotta stop shooting because it moves out of the way, and then I gotta let it come back down so that I'm shooting at the same thing every time. But let's take a peek at that. I think I only had that. Now I moved my target up in that 8 spot that was in the bullseye. And then my last set of rounds here right there, you can see 2 of them just a tad bit out. The other ones are in 1 hole, but just a tad to the left. Now what I was most impressed with was how smooth it was. If you have ever had or just, you know, played with the long Ranger, also comes in 223 or 5.56. If you worked that action, it is not really that smooth. This was amazingly smooth, even when we were putting rounds through it, and I think that it's even going to smooth up a little bit more. It seemed to a little bit as we were shooting it. I only ran about 200 rounds through it or so, so it might still smoothen out just a little bit more. We're at the indoor range, obviously, so we did not have an opportunity to take it out to 100 yards or 200 yards and check the accuracy farther out. We obviously will do that when it warms up. The high today was 2 below 0. That's just too cold for me to get out on the outdoor range. So we had to do this on the indoor range. But as soon as weather starts to warm up here, we're definitely going to take this to the outdoor range and stretch it out a little farther and make sure the accuracy is still good. But close up at the indoor range, accuracy was really, really good. Very consistent, and I liked that. Now the trigger. Henry is not known for having amazing triggers. I never had really one that had a bad trigger, but, you know, just kind of so-so. The trigger on this is actually pretty doggone frickin' smooth. It has no slack. It's got a really nice smooth pull and a very, very short stroke before it goes off. Not hardly any take up and no physical play in it like some triggers do. So as far as Henry's triggers, this is probably the best trigger that they've ever put in a gun. And I have almost all of them, with the exception of some of the big boys. I have almost every rifle that Henry makes. I do like a nice Henry every now and then. This is by far, I would say by far, this is the best trigger that they have in any of the guns that I have shot of theirs. So they did a really nice job on that for sure. Now, as you can see, that is a very nice looking rifle. You can see the wood on there. It's got a really nice grain. You can see a couple of the spots where I fixed it from at the range. Didn't turn out perfect, but it actually turned out pretty good. Really nice wood on there. Let's see if we can try to get a shot of that front sight tip. I don't know if you can kind of see that front sight, the way that is angled differently than what a traditional front sight is. Not really going to be able to get you a good shot of what that front sight picture is because I can't get the camera low enough. But you can see there where it is drilled and tapped for your optic, if you choose to put an optic on it. I'm not sure if there's anything that I would really change on this. They really did a nice job. I'm very, very happy with it. I'm looking forward to more calibers that they would... Okay, that's something I would change. I would not have come out with 223 or 300 Blackout as my first caliber. I probably would come out with something like a 308 or maybe even a 243. They already have in the Long Ranger, they already have a 223. So that, again, this uses the AR magazines. That's cool, but they already had a lever action in this caliber, and I don't know if I would have started. So I guess that'd be the one thing I would do different. I would have put it in a different caliber. This is a 4590. I was using that to hold it up. So a 308 obviously is going to be a little bit longer. I know that they needed to make somewhat of a short action. The 223 and the 300 Blackout are the same height. I am not a fan of the 300 Blackout. There's nothing inherently wrong with it except that it's a big bullet with a small amount of powder behind it. and so it drops very, very quickly. And if you are at a known distance, that isn't really an issue because you can sight it in, and you have a big bullet. You have a 220 up to a 220 grain bullet that's going down range versus your 223. You've got typically a 55 or maybe a 62 grain. Even the light loads on the 300 blackout are typically like 110 or 120 grain. So you're getting double the lead downrange, but you don't have any more powder behind it, and so it drops really fast. So if you are going to sight it in at 100 yards and then for some reason make a 200-yard shot, you've got a really, really lot of drop in there, substantially more than you do with the 223 or the 5.56. So that's the reason that I don't like the 300 blackout. Unless you are sighted in and always shooting at a known distance, or if you've got hash marks in your scope that you know where your round is going to impact and you remember where your round is going to impact. If you have a lot of different calibers, sometimes it can be difficult to remember which one drops at whatever distance. So that's the reason that I don't like the 300 blackout. I have several of them, and I just found that unless you're always shooting at the same distance, that bullet just drops so much so fast, especially with the heavier grains like the 220 grain. And if you're going to run a suppressor on it, you might as well get the subsonic, right? Because that's just kind of part of the reason, right? So that's the reason that I went with this one versus the 300 blackout. I'm just not a fan of that. For that reason, I'm not a fan of the 300 blackout. But other than changing the caliber, I would have gone with a different caliber. There's really not a whole lot, if anything, that I would have changed on this. Henry did a really nice job on this. Hopefully you get a chance to start seeing these come out in stores more. It was hard for me to get this one, but hopefully they start becoming more available and you can get your hands on one as well. Leave something in the comments below. Let me know what you think. If you have one, if you had an opportunity to either shoot one or maybe just see one in the store and have had a chance to feel it, let me know what you think. I'm looking forward to getting this out on the range again at longer distances and checking it out at 100, 200, maybe even 300 yards and see how it shoots then. And possibly putting an optic on it. End game, I think I'd like to see an optic on here. So far, we just did sights. Let me know what you'd put on for an optic. And if you watch this channel for the first time and you haven't already, and you want to, boom, please subscribe.